Hello everyone. In this video we are going to explore the use of the completion activity in BIZUIT Designer, a tool that allows you to explicitly and controlledly terminate a flow when the process logic indicates so. For this demonstration, we will use an example based on the case of the branching activity we saw earlier, adding a new layer of functionality with the completion activity. We will start by configuring the example with the same elements we used for branching. We will define a variable called vClass, of type string, and set its initial value to a variable vDescription, also of type string, but without initial value. In the branching activity, we will keep the same branches and conditions. The first branch is activated if vClass is a. The second branch is activated if vClass is b. The else branch is used when vClass does not meet any of the above conditions. Within each branch, we will use a formula activity to assign a value to vDescription. First class 4a. Business class 4b. Economy class for the else branch. Adding the completion activity. After the branching, we will place an SQL statement activity that will run a query on the customers table from the Northwind database. This query simulates a subsequent activity in the flow. In the if class B branch, we will now add a completion activity. This means that if the flow follows this branch, it will end immediately, skipping any following activities such as the SQL query. This configuration allows us to observe how the completion activity terminates the process in a controlled manner, based on the defined logic. Execution and monitoring. First, execution with vClass set to a. We will execute the process step by step and observe that vDescription is assigned the value first class during the branching. Once this value is assigned, the flow will exit the branch and proceed to execute the SQL activity, displaying the query result in the inspection window. Additionally, we can view the execution time of each activity in the Performance tab, in this case, the SQL statement, and its percentage relative to the rest of the process. Below, we'll find a link with more details on how to interpret that information. Second, execution with vClass equals b. We'll change the value of vClass to b, and run the flow again. In this case, we'll see that vDescription is assigned the value business class. However, when exiting the branch, the completion activity will immediately interrupt the flow, preventing the SQL query from being executed. This demonstrated how the completion activity allows us to control the flow execution based on defined logic, ensuring it stops when continuing with subsequent activities is not required. With this demonstration, we've learned how to use the completion activity to end a flow in an explicit and controlled way. We saw how to configure it to manage scenarios where, according to process logic, it's unnecessary to proceed with further steps. This functionality is key to optimizing flows and avoiding redundant executions. Thank you for joining us on this walkthrough. We hope you find this explanation useful to apply the completion activity in your own processes. See you in the next video.